What's up, my peoples? Welcome back to CYPTV. These are the most interesting videos that I found on TikTok. Do me a favor, watch till the end. Also, share, like, and subscribe. And most importantly, leave a comment on the videos if you like it. Share your opinions on them. Now let's jump right into the video.
Oh my God.
Wow, that's super impressive for being a 500-year-old tradition. Wow, that's crazy. I like that.
God. Jay, what do we see?
And now the top line is brighter.
What is that? Hold on. Is mommy looking at the right thing? Yeah. You see that?
Is this real?
Oh my God. Jay.
Is this AI? Makes me wonder, right?
And now the top line is brighter.
What is that? Hold on. Is mommy looking at the right thing? Yeah. You see that?
I think it was at the inauguration. He was standing behind Trump and he was channeling. I saw it.
Really?
I don't know who saw it, and people were talking about how he was acting weird, but I've experienced this personally, so I can say that that's what I saw. This energy came into him and he was looking all around the room. It was like he was another being that was coming through and seeing what's going on. I mean, I definitely believe that he has assistance with his technology.
I mean, anyone at that level, I feel like has some sort of influence or assistance, right?
Yes.
There's just no way you get to that level.
I agree.
Without it.
100%. Isn't it interesting?
Yeah.
When you look at Elon, what do you see? Do you see
I see an alien.
I see an alien.
Yeah,
I've always seen a
100%.
freaking alien. He's a freaking alien.
Yeah. The way he acts and talks.
Yeah, like he doesn't care what anybody thinks. He is just there for the ride, baby.
Yeah.
There's
Like even when he expresses emotion, it seems fake. It doesn't seem human.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
He's so smart. It's just a different level, right?
Mhm.
Shout out to him though. He's changing the world. We'll see how it ends up.
Real life mystery I've read that creeps me out the most. Hi, I'm Noah, author, GM, and someone who's very comfortable indoors thanks to stuff like this. And this is Mount Asashi, a popular spot for climbers in Japan, and the location of the SOS mystery. Because on July 24th, 1989, 2 men went missing while climbing the mountain. Police and rescue teams immediately scrambled to find them, and a helicopter spotted this SOS sign while searching. Targeting the area, they quickly found the 2 men. And back at the station, one of the police officers mentioned it was a good thing they made this sign, otherwise they might have never found them. To which they replied, "What sign?" Yeah, you heard me right. Whoever built this thing was not the 2 guys who went missing. And so they immediately rushed back out there to see if there was someone else lost. And there was, and they found them, but it was a bit too late. Near the logs, in a small hole, the police found a collection of items, including a tape recorder, a couple of tape cassettes, a pair of basketball shorts, and a collection of human bones that had very obviously been gnawed on by animals, as well as the driver's license of one Kenji Iwamura, someone who went missing on July 10th of 1984, climbing the exact same mountain. And it's thought he got confused, because there's a rock called Kinka Iwa, literally the safe rock, as in it looks like a bank safe. That's an important trail marker for mountaineers climbing this rock. But nearby and almost immediately identical is the Nisei Kinko Iwa, literally the not safe rock. And using that as his guide, they think Kenji fell into this glade and got stuck. Reviewing aerial photographs used to make maps revealed that the SOS trees had been there since at least 1987. And going through the tapes found one of them contained a message of someone desperately screaming SOS and pleading with whatever helicopter they saw to help them. The recording is out there on the internet, and listening to it just sends chills. There is a level of desperation in that voice you cannot fake. A friend of Iwamura's would later confirm that both the cassette tapes and the basketball shorts were Kenji's, confirming that these were his bones. But it still doesn't necessarily answer who made the sign, because based on his skeleton, Kenji very obviously broke some major bones on his fall. Personally, that's not a huge thing for me. I mean, adrenaline and desperation have made people do crazier feats. But personally, the thing that really makes me scratch my head is there's no axe amongst these items that were found. And human beings are not Steve from Minecraft. We are not punching down trees. And if that's not creepy enough, the idea of just being stuck there for days and days, screaming for help, going through the lengths to make this thing and no one is coming. Yeah, no, I'm good. I don't need to climb a mountain.
She didn't sacrifice herself with witchcraft.
Right.
And for real, like,
right.
You know, she's been approached to elevate to the next level.
Oh, that's a real thing.
Oh, that's a real thing, bro. That's a real, like, witchcraft, voodoo, juju, all of that is a real thing.
To get to the next level in career.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yes. Wow. It's a real thing. So she's been presented opportunities like, hey, this is what we do. This is how we move. This is the things that you have to do to get to this level by top execs. And she was like, I'm not with it. And then also she wasn't going to sleep her way to the top. So then it caused her, and she didn't have management really for real. So like, she's successful. She's doing all these things, and she's to the point where it's like, I'm drunk, man. I got a drink to get out my head and just find peace. And so with liquor brought depression. So at that point she was like, this is not me. I love the music, but I hate the business. And she just was like, I can't do it anymore. So that was how she kind of let it go. But yeah, witchcraft, warlocks and voodoo, juju, black magic, all of that is hyper real. That's what made me even believe more in God.
If you enjoy content like this, I put out several videos a week. It would be amazing if you hit the subscribe button and join me in the next video.
No. Hell.
When you find out coffee in China is made with chili oil.
这个是用了什么牌子的咖啡啊？
砣草咖啡。
砣草哈。对。这里面放几袋哦？
放2袋。
这怎么卖的呢
？10元。
哇，这分量还挺足的。
可以。
哦，再放点开水。
冲泡一下。搅一下，搅拌它。
哦。
榨菜。
哦。
花生。
花生。
味精。
哇。
香椿。烫盐。花椒，再来一点。
说辣椒少一点嘛。
辣椒少了。
That's coffee.
喝不出麻辣了吧？
这个平时是早上吃还是晚上吃啊？
这是下午嘛，我们吃这个。
吃了好睡觉哈。
对。
So I was really just wanting to see what the whole big fuss was about with the mirrors and stuff, and how they were moving and the shapes were moving. I didn't even realize it until after I watched the video back. That right there, I didn't even see it while the video was being recorded. I went back and looked over it, and here it is in slow motion, and you could see the eyes. Boop.
In the middle of the road, just been sitting there, glitched out. Just glitched out. In the middle of the road. For no reason. Just sitting there.
But when you say, when they say up until yesterday, we had solid liquid gas and now we have this new kind of matter, they're not saying they created a new kind of matter. They're saying they discovered it
and have harnessed
it, right? So they're saying it was there the whole time, but it was something that was beyond the understanding of human beings until basically this week.
We couldn't find it. We couldn't control it. We didn't even know it actually existed.
Right.
And we certainly didn't know how to control it. In a year, okay, they've been looking for 19 years, Microsoft, longest running research program they've ever run. They found it a year ago. They know how to control it, and now how to make it into a chip something you could hold in your hand that has 1,000,000 qubits of quantum computing.
Now, that again means nothing to me. 1,000,000 qubits of quantum computing, but
it means all of the power. Your phone, if they could put it in a phone, and I'm not saying they can or will, if they could put that one chip in your phone, it would make your phone as powerful as the best supercomputer with a server farm the size of the planet Earth.
Last individual make their way to ring the bell, and it's exactly at 33 minutes. They do that quickly, and there you go, exactly 33 minutes. This was ritualistic, meant to happen this way. As you see here, let's get a little bit of a closer look. Where you see it says, light this candle, and of course, the 33. Again, this is all ritualistic. Take a look here, going back to 1915 with this one particular movie with Kim Novak, and you see the bell and the candle. With the bell symbolism, the Liberty Bell 7, obviously shaped like the bell. NASA here with Kennedy Space Center, of course, Kennedy being 33 numerology ceremony. And let's get to it here. Going back to ancient Babylon, Bel is a title signifying Lord or Master. That's what it's all about when it comes to the Bell symbolism. Their Lord, their Master.
You ever had one of them telemarketers just call your phone, just ring your phone, and on the end, nobody else is there, and you're just hearing nothing on the other end? That was checkpoints in the game, right? In the movie The Matrix, how did Neo and the crew get to and fro from the Matrix? The phone. Remember, y'all keep saying to me in the Matrix, that how do we get to and fro in and out of the Matrix? Phone.
That's the mother matrix literally calling you so that you can tell her and make a wish. You can give her your affirmations, your positive energy. You can give that energy to the mother matrix through that phone.
Is this another reptilian getting caught out there? Look, he just noticed he did that. He's like, oh shit, the cameras are on me. Why did I do that?
On this construction site, these workers are bewildered from what they are witnessing.
Is that a pipe with like air coming out of it that is going crazy like that? High pressured air.
Teleportation gone wrong, right? The Philadelphia experiment. I know you had to hear about this. It was about a Navy SEAL that transported through time. Like the U.S. Navy allegedly conducted an experiment that made the USS Eldridge vanish, and then it reappeared. But the crew, some were still fusing to the metal. Others went insane. A glitch in reality is what they want to call it. Or is it just the government tampering with forces beyond their control? Look it up. That's all I'm saying.
Now, would you let that guy try that with your body?
Oh,
Impressive though.
holy! Me too. I can't believe that happened.
I'm walking down the street here and I'm going by the General Electric Niagara Mohawk building, whatever it is, and check this out. Yeah. This is what's on the building. The power building. You have to be shitting me. Could it be more obvious what they're telling you? Right across the street, you've got talking cursive. And then right next to that, you've got Cafe Kubal. The Kubal, talking cursive. And then that. Good Jesus, Mary and Joseph, oh my God. Maybe I'm just reading the signs a little bit too much or overly perceptive. I don't think so.
And now you push off. Caralho, que loucura, né?
Essa é a loucura da floresta, pessoal. Pra você saber como é o gato que tem uma madeira, olha aí, ó. Mas peça. Olha aí, ó. Eu quero liberar na sua vida aí, ó. Pra vocês verem o quanto...
Listen, I tell you one time I went to a Diddy Party, right? It's when we first signed, when Nelly first signed, we had first signed, right? We was in Miami, right? So, and this is a crazy story. I swear to God, my mom, it's all true, right? So we was in Miami, whatever. It's me, it's Nelly, and it's Ali. We riding around, and Ali like, Nelly like, we gonna go to the Diddy Party. I'm like, damn, I'm trying to go too. But when we pull up to the mansion or whatever, Ali like, nah, I'm gonna pick y'all up later. He like, make sure you call me when y'all ready. I'm like, damn, Ali, you ain't coming in. So I'm trying to figure out why Ali wasn't coming in, right? So, no, for real. So when we get out the car, right, the first thing I noticed, the person that take your car, he ain't had no shirt on. He just had like a yellow thing on, right? I'm like, damn, what's going on, right? So when I first walk in the door, it's hot. I'm talking about it's so, man, it's like it's 100 and something degrees in here. Man, it's hot as hell, right? So when I first walk in, now I see a couple people that I knew. Rick Ross was in there. I saw Rick Ross. I saw who that one nigga played back. Dwight Howard was there. Dwight Howard was there. It was me and it was Nelly. So we come in. I didn't notice everybody else, right? But it was like all liquor. On the side, I didn't see Ciroc, but it was like all other kind of liquor. And then on the other side, it was a big thing full of like waters, right? It was like 500. It was more waters than it was then. But it's true what you said, because when I went back to the door, I couldn't get out. The door automatically locked. Listen to me. The door automatically locked from the inside, right? So I'm in there, so I'm chilling, right? I'm getting hot. I forget what I had on, but I take my shirt off. Everybody got their shirt off because it's so hot, right? So at this time, Diddy is talking to Nelly. He got his arms around Nelly like this the whole time. Nelly got his other arm around him. And they talking about the song, and they talking about this. I'm like, yeah. So at the same time, Diddy like, come back. So I go over to get a drink. I lose Nelly. I'm like, man, I'm ready to go. It's getting too hot. So I got to call Ali. Because remember, Ali told me to call him when I'm ready to go. So I'm like, cool. I'm looking back. I can't find Nelly. So I go in the other room. I open the door. I swear to God, my mama, I ain't lying. Nelly and her getting a hand from Dick.
Hey, yo, pause.
You seen that? He was getting.
Hey, yo.
But you seen that? You seen
I
that?
seen it with my own eyes, man. I swear to God, my mama. I seen it. Listen, I'm like this. I'm like, damn.
You know what that's called, right? You know what that's called, right?
No, Nelly was getting by Diddy, gang.
But that's conspiracy, nigga. You conspire to Nelly jacking someone off.
Gang, I swear to God, mom, listen.
After you conspire to... Yo, see,
listen, no.
Jerked off
After that happened, Nelly put out that song, It's Getting Hot in Here, so take off all your clothes. That's where that song came from.
Let's take a sip.
I swear to God, my mom.
Bro, but you conspire to that.
That's where it came from.
I had recently heard that there are some kind of demonic entities, forces within the pornography industry that literally manifest themselves, and what people are, pleasuring themselves to, not all cases, but there are times that what you're seeing is not a human being having sex. This is something else with another human being in some kind of dark ritual. Do you have any frame of reference or way to bag that?
So with respect to the self-replication of species, what we're dealing with is it could be one entity or many, but what they're doing is they're implanting a fetus in the womb by insemination and then commandeering that fetus as their own biological avatar, transferring their consciousness from one dying body into a new body to possess. Now, it took me a long time to get to that point. I thought I was losing my mind. Like, this can't be happening. And yet, when you get into the pathology of possession, that's exactly what's going on. It's not just the replication of life; it's the relocation of consciousness, where whatever we're dealing with, it has its own language preference. It has its own sometimes sexual orientation, its own pathologies, its own memories. And that was kind of the crux of demonology in the 16th century was, are these horns and hooves, or are these formerly human beings that are trying to prolong their own existence? And so I think the answer, the way to sit with the question is it's somewhere in the middle, to where they're trying to preserve their own species by self-replicating through ours. So getting back to possession and pregnancy, possession to us is pregnancy to them. It's just a different aspect. Possession, according to demonology, again, it's the relocation of consciousness, where it's something else wearing the social skin of another person. And so when I got into these cases, I started getting obviously into possession within the Vatican and Malachi Martin, other exorcists. And there were certain pathologies that didn't fit. Some entities knew how to read, others didn't, never had to. Others claimed to want to be baptized again, never fit the pathology of a demon or even a fallen angel again. So when I started to ask these questions, none of it made sense until I started to realize that it's pointing to a species that's embodied right now in the earth that's trying to prolong their existence by replicating through words and through wombs.
I consume all the dairy products I produce. Hi, I'm Cheryl, and I churn, cheese, and cream my own breast milk. I'd always dreamed of building my own business ever since last year. I just never knew I'd be building it with my own bare breath.
Before we sorry, if I can just pause you. Yes, you just said something which made my ears prick up. They are part of CERN.
Yes, because actually CERN is dealing with radionuclear research.
Right.
It's nuclear research. But it is more than that, because there are lots of physicians. I know some. They're doing very strange experimentation. There are beings from portals coming in and out. It's physicists from the CERN who told me this.
They've testified to beings coming in and out of portals.
Yes. And they were saying, I mean, I met them at a dinner, and there were two of them. And both said that, yes, they have, secondhand proof that the people who they're dealing with the boson of Higgs and the subatomic things. So they have apparently in the bottom of the CERN this portal, this door where they are dealing with all the subatomic dimensions. They say there are 17 different dimensions of reality. That's what those physicists say. Some others say there are more dimensions. We know the time, space, the tridimensional X, Y, Z in a graphic. But then you have more dimensions, and they are playing with that. They're using that, and we're a group, and they had a being. They did not tell me more, who came that doesn't resemble a human. And then they had another one, and they have a proof because they left a scarf. They left a scarf. And now, when you look at what is going on in the CERN, there is a fight from some of the military agencies, intel. They say that there is a fight on time. They're trying to change time. I'm just saying that because as a scientist, you cannot not say something so important. Because if you can deal with the smallest energies on Earth, you can imagine that you can go through other realms of dimensions. They say, yeah. So I will stop there. But CERN is very important, and it's in Geneva. And they have a tunnel for their experiment that is going down to Milano, to Genova, under the lake.
Why
That-
is
they're doing
Geneva?
much more than
Why is Geneva of such significance? Because you've got the
They don't want you to know about Abraxas. Not a god, not a devil, but the force that created both. In ancient Gnostic texts, Abraxas is the primordial deity, the one that gave birth to light and darkness, truth and lies, heaven and hell, all at once. Early Christians feared him. The Vatican erased him, but the truth still lingers. His name was etched on sacred stones, 7 letters, 365 value in Greek numerology, 1 for each day of the year. Because Abraxas is time itself, the ticking force that keeps you trapped between dualities. Gnostics believed if you speak his name in meditation, you break free. Free from the illusion of good versus evil. But here's the warning. Once you meet Abraxas, you never see reality the same again. Because once you see the truth, you realize this world is a game. And Abraxas is the player behind both sides of the board. Still think you're in control? Follow for more on Dopamine TV.
Everyone's DNA, they use less than a third of the DNA. Did you know that there are immortal genes? Did you know that you have immortal DNAs? Did you know that you have the DNA to grow any part of your body, to change it any way you want to? Did you know you have the DNA of humanity? Did you know that you can turn a predisposition of genetics of blindness into a predisposition of sight? Did you know that you can tap your DNA to not only make you immortal, but reverse your aging? Do your genes have that? Yes, they do. It's what gene fingerprinting is all about in its infantile stages. But it's embarrassing when we really know it. Because the great question is, well, if I have an immortal gene, how come I'm not immortal? Why in the f*** is it still there? You can edit that out if you wish. Or you can leave it in according to the maturity of the audience. But I'm certain I have said nothing new under the sun, Horatio. You know why? Because you focus only on your emotional means to an end. So your DNA holds what is replicant in you to an experience. You have never gone outside of yourself to create the experience of yourself. Here's how
I don't think your boobers are going to get through that. Yeah, okay, you said what everyone, the whole restaurant's thinking. No, I went through the...
You did not go through 10.
She can't get through that.
One boob at a time.
15.
She doesn't go through 20.
Did you get through to 15?
She did, she did.
Twice.
We've seen redonkulous things, right? So we go down to Chiapas, Mexico. We're rescuing kids down there. I mentioned that one that portaled through Zoom from Chiapas,
Yeah.
right? So there's all kinds of next level demonic witchcraft, next level witchcraft down there. So things that manifest, you go, whoa, what is that? I never even heard of like a hybrid spider type person. And that's why all these kids say, you know, man, she looks like a spider. She has many arms. Well, of course, if you go into India, you know, you got all kinds of gods and deities that have multiple arms. The largest Mayan pyramid on the planet Earth is in Chiapas. We are rescuing children in the shadow of that thing. You can literally see the pyramid from my ranch.
Wow. From your ranch?
Yeah. We have a redemption ranch there.
Wow.
And so, and again, we bought turf. We bought physical dirt. We brought in a ministry that's been there for 9 generations. We turned the whole thing over there so that we would have authority within that region. Okay. You don't just come in there swinging the American flag. You come in there in the authority of the kingdom, and you need to know how to operate in authority. So with all that said, we did all this. And at our hotel, there's this big giant rock that has a giant footprint in it. And it's monstrous. I went down there with Brian Schwartz. He's an NFL football player. He wears a size 17 shoe. Okay. This thing was twice the size of his shoe. I hear that you guys got giants down here. And they're like, yeah, we do. And like, okay, well, would they come up out of the ground? Or are they going to, like, yeah, they live in the ground. And like, and they're like, but that's not as scary as the ones that come out of the sky. And I'm like, the ones that come out of the sky, and they said yes, and they come down and they look like stars and constellations, and they manifest into what look like people, and they threaten us if we don't give them things.
Wow.
So it's like, I know that there's a species of angels that's called the host of heaven. The host of heaven is the constellations. So you can see that whenever Jesus was born, that the shepherds are out in the field, the angels came down as the host of heaven. Well, they were used to seeing those constellations every single night, and they were used to seeing Virgo, the virgin, a clump of stars that is a virgin that has a seed in her, which is impossible. And then from there, Libra, he's going to be a redeemer. From there, Scorpio, he's going to take on death. From there, Sagittarius, he's going to raise from the dead. And it ends at the line of the tribe of Judah, Leo, which is the ecliptic. And so I'm into all that, right? They knew the story in the heavens. The angels that showed up were as those constellations. They're also known as the stars of God. They're also known as the stars. I can guarantee you some of those have fallen. Some of those have rebelled. And they show up down there. The stars come down, they manifest, and all kinds of craziness happens.
We're back with part 2, chapter 16. The fire of 1666. The battle between Great Tartary and the Greys of Orion. Here are revealed clashes between two powerful civilizations, the Great Tartarians and the Orion Greys, who were in charge of the great human colony during the time of the war between the Custodians and the Anunnaki. During the time known as the 1600s, they wanted to start taking over energy systems and seeing the great development of the Tartars. A great scramble to regain control began, possibly by order of the Custodians. As London burned with fire, a series of other similar explosions and attacks broke out in other parts of the Anakim's underground cores, unleashing chaos and confusion on a grand scale. The Tartars would soon begin their counter-attack. In what we know as Moscow, Russia, there was a huge center that was attacked by fires that consumed large structures and libraries with ancient knowledge. Advanced defense technology was used to repel this part of the attack and not suffer great losses. But the same was beginning to happen in Beijing, China, and especially in Egypt. The Grey Beings tried to activate ancient Anunnaki technologies to increase power. The Tartars, aware of the importance these structures reflected, quickly intervened. The actual conflict between Greys and Tartarians during the fire of 1666 was a struggle for control of the energy grids, and the latter, with the great development based on free energy, had built a generating and conducting grid that maintained the balance of all known lands within the first dome. The Orion Greys, even trying with all their technology to destroy these centers, did not succeed and were partially defeated. This would also mark a before and after in their direct relationship with the custodian leaders in the future. There are also reports that the Tartars were tired of their increasingly frequent abductions of humans. The Greys, when really worried about losing their control, began to use time manipulation technology to try to destabilize the defense of Great Tartary. This caused great natural disasters and turmoil in many parts of the known lands. The Tartars returned everything to equilibrium over time. The conflict culminated in a state of attrition. Although the Greys caused great damage, they could not completely break the defenses of the Anakim. Although this conflict would be key to understand their technology to defeat them later during the Great War of 1728. Chapter 17. The 1728 Reset. Having lost the war against the Anunnaki, the custodians returned to find their most prized human colony in a state of great technological advancement and rebellion. Fearing they would lose control completely, the custodians again joined the Anunnaki in a treaty to plan a new reset. The reset was carried out through a great mud flood generated by the Anunnaki pyramids combined with controlled explosions to destroy the great cores and centers of the Tartars. During the chaos, some Anakim giants helped many ancestral humans to recross the southern passage and re-establish themselves behind the first dome in the ancestral lands and the Shaky lands. This would lead to the repopulation of the known lands by the seventh generation, the current new humanity. For this, many strict control changes, new diseases, and limiting longevity was absolutely paramount. The creation of the simulation of the universe in the same invisible dome with advanced technology was one of the most powerful modernizations of the custodians that absolutely challenged the new humanity on the understanding of their environment, thus creating several filters of fragmentation of society and technology and discouraging exploration along with total manipulation of the loyalists, group of humans located at the top of the hierarchical pyramid that would help these custodial beings against their own brothers for promises of all kinds. Of course, man. Fucking puppets. All world leaders, politicians, right at the bottom of the pyramid. As well as monitoring systems, creation of artificial ice walls, creation and manipulation of the weather, especially in the latitudes near the dome, creation of military bases and development of custodial technology given to the loyalists, technological advancement system regarding generation of earthquakes in case of anomalous detection in areas bordering the dividing ice walls. So if they see you getting close there, they activate earthquakes, just like they do here. Because earthquakes, yeah, you guessed it, through them.
A local snack. I can't believe they eat those.
Hey, 8-5.
I can't believe they could catch them with chopsticks. That's crazy.
As I said, Chicago was gone. Upstate New York had a very strange problem. The St. Lawrence River became an inland seaway and developed a lake which covered Albany, New York, a large saltwater lake. So there were a lot of strange changes in the United States. Canada, I did not pay any particular attention to. It didn't appear to have changed that much. Europe had drastic changes. In Europe, England was gone. Most, but not all, of Ireland was gone. The Highlands of Scotland was still alive and well, apparently. And in terms of the internal country and parts of Europe, as we know it now, quite a bit of it was underwater. Even parts of Switzerland were underwater. The mountains had dropped that far. What all had gone on in Europe, we don't really know. And the guys I asked the questions of couldn't really answer them correctly anyway, because they were not that familiar with it. The man I principally talked with was a hospital technician, quite intelligent, and during our stay there, he was the only black man we saw. He was a black medical technician, very competent and educated. He was the only black person we saw on our entire stay in the year 2137. But there was still rail travel, land travel. I didn't ask about airlines travel. But I happened to ask, what's the world population these days? And they said, oh, slightly over 300 million. And I looked at him and I says, world population? He said, yes, world population. So the U.S. is now down around 50 million or less. There's no government left acting on the face of the earth intact. They had all crumbled sometime between the period of 2000 and, as he told me, 2025. Martial law was set in almost all these areas. There was a combination of, and historically speaking, of a nuclear war, World War III, though it was considered a rather brief World War III, but a lot of destruction, and then there was natural earth changes, which were more destructive than the war. Between all of those, there was a great loss of life, a loss of government, a loss of transportation, and of course with that you have starvation and other problems. And it went continually downhill from about 2003 is my guess, and he didn't specify a date. He said the records were hazy, but it looked like 2004 approximately when things came apart. And at that point he said what was left of the government under military control was attempting to rebuild the nation. And this was in 2137. He said it was well along to being rebuilt, but it was far from being completely rebuilt, and the destruction being replaced and over. So that was rather a strange interlude and rather a shock. Why we wound up there, I have no idea. It certainly was not our idea. And who, shall we say, engineered this little trip into the year 2137 is still unknown to me. I have some ideas as to who it might be, but that gets into a little later part of the dissertation and discussion of what happened. I asked about levels of science and technology. Oh yes, he said nothing was lost during this whole period of the earth destruction and the earth upheavals and the war. He said we still have computers, we have TV, we have all kinds of communications. I didn't ask him about space travel or what was going on in terms of what was once NASA. Didn't think to ask him about that because I was, shall we say, preoccupied with the otherwise earth changes and the total shift in the size of civilization and its structure. I asked about money and banks. He says, oh yes, there's still money. They said the banks are a lot smaller than they were and they're not as active. And watching TV, now that I think about it, I didn't see a single ad about anything. So there was some major changes. Now, we stayed there approximately 6 weeks. I'm saying we, Duncan and myself. We did get up out of bed eventually and move around. But before the next phase began, I'll have to say that I thought we were stuck there, perhaps forever, without the slightest idea of how we got there in the first place, and they couldn't explain it either. We suddenly appeared someplace where they picked us up unconscious, returned in to an ambulance crew, and they took us to a hospital. And we were in uniform, so they knew we were military personnel, but the military had changed drastically in the meantime, and the military of that era had no particular interest in us. One day, wandering around that hospital and hospital grounds, I disappeared from that era and from 2137, and I wound up in a still further future date. By what means, who arranged it, who provided the transportation, I don't know. It was obviously a form of time travel. And the interesting thing about it was that Duncan was not with me. He remained behind at 2137, as I found out later. I wound up in the 28th century, time period at 2749 to 2751 AD. Talk about changes in civilization, society, and everything else. It was drastically changed from what we saw in 2137, as this is now 600 years later. The cities were enormous. The cities were beautiful. They had ground-based cities, much as we have always had them. But they also had something else, floating cities. Floating cities due to anti-gravity techniques being perfected sufficiently that they could float an entire city, which was perhaps not as large as any of our current cities. It was round, or very nearly round. But it floated on this platform, and they could move the city any place they wanted, remaining floating in the air, 4,000 or 5,000 feet above the ground, perhaps, or a little less, depending on what they wanted. But the size of the city was vertical rather than horizontal. 2,200 stories high. That's about 2.5 miles. And I learned about this and looked at this, and I said to myself, because I befriended some people in the 28th century, how do they support this? And strength of materials, anything we know, and I'm sure in this era, is inadequate to withstand the load of all of those stories above the ground, of the lowest level. And I said, quite true. I said, well, how do you do it? And I says, well, very simply, it's about every 300 floors, we put another anti-gravity platform which relieves the weight of all of those sections above on the section below, and they do this for every 300 stories or so, and you break it up into 300-story sections, which is not impossible by even today's strength of materials, but by future strength of materials and advances, no problem whatever. So you divide it up, and the weight load was only on one level, and then below it was independent in terms of load, though they're all well attached. And by that means they suspended the load into a distributed form, which made it very feasible. The cities could move anywhere on the planet. Basically, they stayed hovering and floating. Or if they didn't like a particular location, they moved somewhere else. There wasn't that much traffic in moving cities, I can assure you, because the world population in that era, the 28th century, was only 500 million, and I was instructed later that that was where they had held it for centuries. There would be no more than approximately 500 million population. Some of the features of this, let's start from the political standpoint. As I learned, all of these cities, whether they're ground-based cities, of which the majority were, because they had to do manufacturing, they had to have agriculture, and various other things to supply the needs of civilization. But all of them, whether floating or ground-based, were rather interesting in their governmental form. They had essentially no government. There was no government as we know it today. There was no money, there was no banks, there was no political jurisdictions, and it resolved down to what would be best called a city-state structure, where the city is the state, and any other cities from that one are independent and operate in their own independent manner. So that was the major change there. There was no elected government, there was no appointed government. There was no government as we had ever seen it in the past. As I found out, each city was run by an intelligent computer, synthetic intelligence, synthetic consciousness, a highly radioactive crystalline structure. Who built them, I had no idea. Nobody seemed to know. But they've been there for hundreds of years. And this computer ran the entire city. There were guidelines set down, there were law books, but no courts. There were guidelines set down as to how you're to behave, what your parameters were.
Real or fake, fact or fiction? Let me know what you think about these videos down in the comments section. Until next time, this is CYPTV, and I'm out.